The Holy Gospel according to Luke. On the first day of the week, at early dawn, the women came to the tomb, taking the spices that they had prepared. They found the stone rolled away from the tomb, but when they went in, they did not find the body. While they were perplexed about this, suddenly two men in dazzling clothes stood beside them. The women were terrified and bowed their faces to the ground, but the men said to them, "Why do you look for the living among the dead? He is not here, but has risen. Remember how he told you while he was still in Galilee that the Son of Man must be handed over to sinners and be crucified and on the third day rise again." Then they remembered his words, and returning from the tomb, they told all this to the 11 and to all the rest. Now it was Mary Magdalene, Joanna, Mary the mother of James, and the other women with them who told this to the apostles. But these words seemed to them an idle tale, and the apostles did not believe the women. But Peter got up and ran to the tomb. Stooping and looking in, he saw the linen clothes by themselves. Then he went home, amazed at what had happened. When we lived in the UK, our house was 12 feet wide, brick to brick, and part of a continual row of houses. Our backyard was completely enclosed with no gate, so in order to get into any part of the house, you had to enter through the front door. When we moved in, the guy we bought it from said we could go ahead and keep the couch in the living room. Since there was no way our American-sized couch was going to make it through that red front door, we sold ours off and said, sure. And for 4 years, we lived with that couch in exactly the same place because it was the only place where it would fit. Now, it was a little big for the space, which was only about 9 feet by 10 feet. You had to kind of squeeze around it. And between the couch and the coffee table, which was also too big for the room, you couldn't see the absolutely gorgeous Victorian fireplace. But we'd just come into the grown-up part of our lives, having just recently been grad students, and so we were going to make do with whatever we had. There was no way we were going to contemplate spending money on furniture when we had perfectly good stuff right here. So eventually, when we moved out, the buyer didn't want the couch. He said it was too big for the space. So we decided to put it on the container we were sending across the ocean anyway. The movers assured us that they could get the couch out, and they proceeded to pack everything, until at last the couch was the only thing left. And it wouldn't fit. They couldn't get it past the turn into the very narrow hallway. It was too big to go through the window. And of course, they had already packed our toolbox. Now, at the time, our oldest son was 2.5 and our youngest son was 3 months. My husband, Matt, was at his office directing the movers there. I was by myself with an owner who didn't want this couch, but who was ready to be handed the keys, movers who weren't sure what to do and who were starting to shrug their shoulders, a baby on the floor, and a toddler running around the room pretending to be an airplane. The couch didn't seem like the kind of thing someone had gotten from IKEA either. We'd thought we'd gotten a real deal when the previous owner gave it to us because it was like actual nice furniture. But now I was wondering whether the previous owner had also been gifted this couch. But I was getting a bit desperate and ready to saw it in half. We flipped it over, tore the fabric on the bottom, and found that we could get one of the arms off, but we needed a wrench. Mercifully, they did have one on the truck. But the movers didn't want to take the couch apart for liability reasons, so I did. while my baby cooed at the ceiling and my older child went meow around the room. And after the alarm was off, the movers were finally able to wiggle the couch around the doorway and into the hallway and out the door. The fabric tore on the way out. I still have no idea how anyone ever got it inside that house. But once the couch was gone, I could see the room's potential in a way I'd never seen it before. It had always felt pretty cute even, but a bit cramped because that lovely couch didn't fit the space. But I had never seen that room without it. We'd hung on to it, I don't know, because we didn't see the need to get something different when we had something that worked well enough. I don't know that we'd ever considered another option because it was what was there. But it wasn't until the couch was out that I could see what the room had to offer. Before you do something new, you have to move out the things you've been hanging on to. Otherwise, there isn't space for them. New beginnings are often exciting, but they're also difficult. New life requires letting go. Transformation doesn't come without the casting off of the things that no longer serve their purpose. Why do you look for the living among the dead? The men at the tomb ask the women who have come to care for their rabbi's body. They came to the tomb faithfully with certain expectations as to what they were going to do and how it was going to go. And then everything was changed. He is not here. He has risen. Nothing will ever look the same again. And when the women returned to tell the story, they were dismissed by everyone except Peter, who, after having denied Jesus 3 times just before he was crucified, just a couple of days ago, Peter was the only one willing to accept that these women might be preaching the gospel. We are finally able to celebrate Easter together after 2 years away. And during that time, we have changed. We are no longer the same people we were in February of 2020. The world has changed too, and so has the church. And even though some things will never change, the desire to come together, for instance, we won't be able to go back completely to the way things were before because we are now different. Things change all the time. The dot-com boom, the rise of the smartphone, uprisings of the oppressed, wars. Change itself is not new. This time of coming out of the pandemic is one of those moments when we feel that the earth is shifting beneath our feet. And during such times, one of our instincts will always be to grasp at the familiar and wish to go back to what we imagine are simpler times, even if those familiar things don't serve us well anymore. Tradition is the living faith of the dead. Traditionalism is the dead faith of the living. We stand as heirs of a faith that is molded and shaped by many inflection points throughout history, a faith that proclaims against all odds that we should not look for the living among the dead, because death has been overcome. Resurrection is the antithesis of resignation. It acknowledges the reality and pain of death, and yet proclaims that new life is possible even in the midst of it. So what is God doing in your life that is new? And what are you hanging on to that doesn't serve you anymore? We do not look for the living among the dead because we know that Christ is risen. We know that resurrection is not only possible, but it is a reality. Alleluia.